PK in the universe, here to talk about Perler creations and my advice for people who are getting started with Perler creations. I just started doing this recently, so I'm kind of new to it as well, but I've learned some things that maybe I could have learned from a video. Maybe I looked at some different videos, but didn't. There were things that I don't feel like a lot of creators addressed, so I'm going to address a lot of things that I learned, maybe the hard way. So here we go. This is my Perler creation advice. Well, let's first talk a little bit about what are Perler creations. Well, Perler creations are something like this. They're made of Perler beads, as you can see if you zoom in far enough. This is a Bucky O'Hare. I have several Perler creations in the background as well. Anyway, so what's the process? Well, it's really simple actually. Is you have these, what they call pegboards here, as you can see. And you have Perler beads. Here's some Perler beads. And you put the Perler beads on the pegboard and you follow a pattern such as this, or I just printed off this random pixel pattern right here. You could use that as your guide. And what I like to do is I like to start in the center and then I go from left to right kind of thing. And I do left to right because I get confused. I've tried different ways where I maybe do the outline first, and I've had problems where I missed a bead slightly and it just threw the whole thing off. So from my experience, I seem to make a lot less mistakes when I go from left to right when I do my Perler creations. Finding a design. There are all kinds of designs on the internet. There's a lot of Perler creations on Pinterest. Pinterest is a great site to look for it. Google Images. Some people just take an existing one that somebody's already made and just print it off. That's something you can do. One of the problems I find with that is sometimes other people who've made Perler creations don't know what they're doing, or they missed a bead somewhere and they never corrected it. So a lot of times it's good to just, maybe take an existing pixel design and use that as your template. Another thing that's kind of really helpful is they actually make Perler books. Like this one here is really great. Because the nice thing about this is you can take your board and just put it right over that. That way you can actually just do it that way. In fact, this Perler book, it says it's for 6 and up, but honestly, my 3-year-old son can do this. So what I do for him is I just take some masking tape and I tape it to the book itself, and then I just remove the tape before we actually do the whole process. But I'm going to talk a little more about the process too, is how the beads get melted together. Ironing Perler beads, there's two types of people who iron Perler beads. There's the people who iron it and they straight up make every single bead flat as can be. And then you have people, I guess I would call my style is, what I do is I iron the back, and I iron it very well. Probably some of these do get a little flat, but then in the front I just do kind of a light ironing. I like to have mine have that circular look still to them, but some people, they just straight up flatten everything. And it's really important to get those edges, because I've had some times where I would do the edges and I would and some of them, the edges wouldn't get done right, and then all of a sudden the beads are coming off the edges, and you do not want that to happen. That brings me into another part of the process. I like to do the masking tape method. If you don't know what the masking tape method is, there's videos on it. Basically, in a nutshell, what you do is you take layers of tape and you tape over it, over your thing, and then you flip it around. And so also in the process of ironing, what you want to use is parchment paper. Do not use wax paper, because people have told me that the wax paper can get stuck to the beads easier or something. So yeah, parchment paper is great. I've had no problems with parchment paper whatsoever. I can't speak to wax paper. So what you do is you iron over the beads themselves and you get those beads hot. Now, I don't know what the perfect setting for an iron is, honestly. I've heard a lot of people say things like 2.5, but it's like my iron doesn't even have that setting, so I don't know what the heck 2.5 is. I like to put the dial in the middle. That's the best way I can describe. of how hot I get my iron. You definitely don't want it as hot as possible, I'll tell you that much. And do not use steam, okay? You can mess up the beads bad from using steam. Don't do that. So anyways, yeah, so with the masking tape method, you put like layers of tape on your thing, and then you basically, what I do is I say I had my thing on, I put the layers of tape on there, and you have them overlapping. What I do is I flip it around, and you can kind of like peel it. You can actually like pull this off the top. That's how I do it. Don't start out too big. Start out with something small like this. This is really easy to make, and you can find this design literally anywhere. You probably don't want to start out with something this big right here. This is very big, obviously. This is Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim, to look at him, you might look and say, this is really awesome. That's another thing, too, is a lot of people, if you're like a huge perfectionist, let me just tell you right now, you're going to mess some of these up. I've even messed up Scott Pilgrim here. You can't see that. You probably can't see that just by looking at it on camera right now at this very second. But there are things I've messed up about here, that, the average person isn't going to notice, honestly. And that's one thing I figured out from this process. This is actually what I worked off of, and this is actually what I created. Which is really nice about Perler Creations is you can be creative. If you don't have the exact colors, you can kind of just do your own thing. Like I only had one type of gray, and this required like 2 or 3 different kinds of gray, maybe. So I turned his gray jeans into blue jeans. And I thought, well, I'd already gone that far, so I might as well make his shirt not green and make it yellow. I thought that'd be cool because I had never seen a yellow Scott Pilgrim. So yeah, I mean, this thing had didn't come out perfectly, but came out really well, and I'm really happy with it. I've made peace that it isn't perfect. That's one thing about making Perler Creations. You're gonna mess things up. It's just unavoidable. Even like when I was using the masking tape method, there were times when I'd iron it and I thought I had the beads on really strong, and then beads would actually come off, so I'd have to put the beads back on a piece of masking tape next to it and iron that in. And it still didn't come out quite the same as the original design I made, but anyways, the average person will not notice this. So don't beat yourself up if you don't get one of these things perfect. That's what's great about Perler Creations is you can improvise. You can really make your own thing, But anyways, that's my advice on Perler Creations. What are your guys' thoughts? Is there advice that you would give people if you make Perler Creations? In fact, people, if somebody's, if you're watching this video, there might be some great advice down in the comments section, hopefully. So comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay awesome in this universe. Thanks. Bye.